Tonight on 7 News, Sydney rolls out a rousing royal welcome on a day many in our city will never forget. Handshakes and hugs as the King and Queen work their magic, creating memories for young and old.
Bomb scare secret. Passengers only find out on social media why their plane was suddenly stopped on the runway at Sydney Airport.
A family's profound void laying tributes where a mother and her 2 children drowned in our southwest.
The teal wave rolls into State Parliament. Pittwater turns the tide against the Liberals, voting for an independent.
High-speed hoons roaring through WestConnex and racking up an astonishing amount in fines.
And Tim Zoo's boxing career at a crossroads after a shock loss.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson and Angela Cox.
Good evening. Flag-waving, cheering crowds have turned out on a stunning Sydney day to greet King Charles and Queen Camilla for the start of their royal tour. Fans lined the streets, many waiting for hours to see the royals.
They made their way from Admiralty House to church and then State Parliament for official duties. Some had travelled from halfway around the world for a glimpse of the monarch, who declared he's always cherished Australia.
Sunday morning and a visit to church, but the crowds were undertaking a little worship as well. King Charles and Queen Camilla on the first event of their 6-day tour, St Thomas's Anglican Church, North Sydney. The Sunday school kids flagging the enthusiasm to come.
How was that? You just met the King.
It was so good! I loved it so much!
All right, one by one.
I loved it so much, it's so nice.
In the church where his great-grandfather laid the foundation stone 100 years ago, they prayed for Charles's health before the King signed their copy of the King James Bible, First Fleet edition. Outside, the capacity crowds could pass their best wishes themselves.
I'm sorry there wasn't room for you in the church.
Oh, we would have definitely come.
For 30 minutes, their majesties worked their magic.
G'day, you've actually greetings from Tasmania.
It was monarchy madness. They shook hundreds of hands.
King Charles, welcome to Australia.
Where do you rate that? What do you think, meeting-wise?
10 out of 10.
Tom?
Waves of emotion, moving some to tears.
It was so thrilling. It was overwhelming, and I started to cry.
Started to cry.
The crowd stretched for a shot. Phones were high, spirits too.
We've been here since 5 o'clock this morning. Yeah.
Worth the wait then?
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't expect to feel anything much, but I did. A lot of people. I didn't actually realise I was a monarchist, but I am.
They brought gifts. One, packets of kangaroo jerky.
Do you think he's going to love eating kangaroo, or is he going to be a bit...
He had a bit of a love with me. He said, that's my kangaroo, yummy.
This woman travelled 9,000 kilometres from off the South African coast.
Exactly 15 hours. So
That is a really long trip.
absolutely.
You must really love the King and Queen.
Absolutely. We love the King and we love the Queen.
There were protesters, held far back and far outnumbered. Some just carried away on enthusiasm. Security ever present.
This is the present for Queen Camilla. Okay. That's booked. Okay, thank you.
Just before midday, their majesties moved off. The next engagement, a visit to State Parliament to mark the 200-year anniversary of the Legislative Council. It's his 17th visit to Australia, but his first as king, saying he couldn't be happier to be back.
What a great joy it is to come to Australia for the first time as sovereign and to renew a love of this country and its people, which I have cherished for so long.
He presented Parliament with an hourglass gift to time political speeches and even hinted time may see Australian politics change too.
Democratic systems must evolve, of course, to remain fit for purpose, but they are, nevertheless, essentially sound systems.
Outside Parliament, he was back to the crowds, where several thousand had gathered for a glimpse. Next meeting, an open arms greeting for the state's Governor, Margaret Beazley, followed by the new Governor-General, Sam Mostyn.
So today was a day all about church services and visiting Parliament, church and state, but it was also
the first one of these. The term walkabout now banned as inappropriate. They call them opportunities to meet the people. Their Majesties couldn't have met more. They've turbocharged the meet and greet. Casual, intimate, a royal audience for the masses. Chris Reason.
So what's next for King and Queen? We have reporters at Kirribilli and in Canberra. First to Annie Puller outside Admiralty House. Annie, how are the Royals spending the night?
Mark, the King and Queen are taking a much-needed break tonight, resting and recuperating after wrapping up a big day of public engagements. Considering the King's cancer diagnosis, doctors have tried to facilitate as much downtime as possible during this tour, and it seems their Majesties have been enjoying a bit of R&R, soaking up the warm weather here in Sydney, strolling the grounds of Admiralty House late this afternoon and taking in those incredible harbour views. Now tomorrow, the royal couple will be jetting off to Canberra, undertaking another jam-packed day of events. Mark.
Annie Puller live at Kirribilli, thank you. Let's go to Rob Scott in Canberra now. Rob, what's on the itinerary there tomorrow?
Mark, they're only here for about 6 hours, but they are packing a lot in. They arrive around midday and it's straight to the War Memorial, where the King will lay a wreath and the Queen a floral tribute. And it's there the public will get their first chance to greet the pair. Their Majesties will then receive a ceremonial welcome on the forecourt of Parliament House before attending a reception hosted by the Prime Minister and his fiancée. Then it's off to Government House, where the Queen will attend a discussion on family and domestic violence hosted by the Governor-General. The King, meantime, will hold an audience with the opposition leader and a separate meeting with Anthony Albanese. From there, he'll visit the CSIRO National Bushfire and Research Laboratory, meeting with scientists and firefighters. Their Majesties will then regroup at the National Botanic Gardens before returning to Sydney, ending what will be a lightning trip to the capital. Mark.
Rob, thank you.
Air New Zealand passengers say they only found out from social media that their plane was at the centre of a bomb threat at Sydney Airport.
Federal police swept the aircraft but found nothing suspicious. The source of the scare remains a tightly guarded secret.
Stuck on a plane, unaware they're at the centre of a bomb threat. 4 hours later, passengers finally reunite with loved ones. The Air New Zealand flight from Wellington landed in Sydney at 5:40 last night after staff on board raised the alarm.
Flight crew came around like mid-flight, opening up all the overhead lockers and just like closing them back up as if they were looking for something.
Kept well away from terminals, the A320 was isolated on the runway for more than an hour. 154 passengers told to wait in their seats without any details.
That was the intimidating part, just not really sure what was going on.
We were sitting out there on the runway, we didn't know what to expect until it came up all on social media.
I think it's probably good they handled it the way they did, because imagine the panic if they're like, oh, there's a bomb on board.
Disembarking row by row into the night, each traveller then individually screened.
Our bags were put on the floor and the dogs went around and sniffed. We were just asked where we were coming from, identification, phone numbers.
New Zealand media reports a note found on board could have triggered the extensive security response.
But the Australian Federal Police remain tight-lipped about the source of the threat. They did confirm that after a thorough search of the aircraft, nothing suspicious was found.
Those on board left in the dark, but relieved at arrivals. Amy Clemens, 7 News.
Detectives are treating a fire at a kosher cafe in Bondi Beach as suspicious. Forensic police were seen carrying a jerry can from the scene today. A blaze erupted in the kitchen at 4 o'clock this morning.
There are a number of items seized from the location, which will be forensically tested.
20 people living in units above the business were evacuated by firefighters. No body was injured, but the restaurant was extensively damaged. There are tributes tonight for a mother and her 2 children who drowned in the Georges River in our southwest. Live now to Zoe Martin at Lansvale. Zoe, what have we learned about the family?
Angela, 7 News has spoken to heartbroken friends today who have confirmed mother, 32-year-old mother Juan Nguyen, her 7-year-old son Mitchell and her 5-year-old daughter Hazel were the 3 lives lost on Saturday morning on the Georges River. Their family is devastated and desperately searching for answers about how all 3 died in this incident. loved ones amongst those leaving flowers and cards here at the pier in Landsville today. The young family is from Fairfield and were much loved by the local Vietnamese community. Hundreds of tributes have been posted on Facebook, including from several local leaders asking for donations to support the surviving husband and the one-year-old child. The investigation into the incident is ongoing and a report is being prepared for the coroner, Ange.
OK, thanks so much, Zoe Martin.
The New South Wales Liberals are bracing for a shock defeat to an independent following the by-election in Pittwater. With more than 60% of the vote counted, Jackie Scrooby is on track to become the first Teal MP in state parliament.
A by-election boogie, the dance of the Teals.
I did get sleep last night.
Independent Jackie Scrooby, poised to claim Pittwater.
An incredible swing towards community-backed independence.
The latest independent to invade Liberal heartland on Sydney's northern beaches. With over half the vote counted, the Teals are comfortably ahead of the Liberal Party. It suffered a 6% swing. High fives and tears from the Pittwater Liberal candidate, Georgia Ryburn, not conceding yet.
Path to victory is difficult.
A campaign that saw her directly targeted for living outside Pittwater.
While the Teal candidates like to push the narrative that they are the David and we are the Goliath, this isn't the case.
The by-election forced by the resignation of Liberal MP Rory Amon over child sex charges and coming after the Liberals bungled nominations for council elections.
In seats where we haven't had the sorts of challenges we've had in Pittwater, we've seen big swings to the Liberal Party.
In Epping, Liberal candidate Monica Tudorhope easily winning the seat vacated by former Premier Dominic Perrottet. Also straightforward, the Liberal win in Hornsby. And like here in Pittwater, by-elections without any Labor candidates in the field. The opposition leader says it's the government refusing to face the judgment of the voters. Electors have backed a candidate who had ambitions as a little girl.
People would say, what did she want to be? And she said she wanted to be the Prime Minister.
I think a career counsellor would tell me maybe I'm on the wrong path as an independent.
Chris Marr, 7 News.
Labor has won a record 7th consecutive term in power in the ACT. The victory will extend the party's political reign to 27 years. The Chief Minister describing it as an extraordinary achievement. Even the opposition leader conceded as much.
And once again, we have been endorsed to lead the government of the Australian Capital Territory.
No matter how you cut it up, 27 years, whether we like it or not, is an incredible feat.
Labor secured 10 seats, not enough for a majority, but Andrew Barr says he's confident he can form government with a crossbench of independents and Greens.
Police are searching for 3 intruders wanted over a home invasion in Canley Heights. It's believed they forced their way into the property around 1 a.m. before threatening 2 residents inside. The offenders fled without stealing anything and remain on the run. Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hezbollah of trying to assassinate him following a drone attack on his home.
The failed attempt on his life came on a day Israel released vision said to show the slain mastermind of the October 7 attack in the lead-up to the massacre.
Deep below Gaza, a man moves his belongings, his wife and children into their new home. It's October 6, 2023, and Yahya Sinwar knows in just hours his world and the Middle East will change.
While hiding in the tunnels of Khan Yunis, Sinwar ordered the October 7th attack to begin.
The Hamas attack on Israel, moments after these pictures were taken, forcing him underground into this bunker, furnished with equipment and cash to keep him here for more than a year. The vision released by Israel along with this. They say it shows Sinwar in one of his few occasions above ground, his last moments.
This was the first and last time he encountered Israeli soldiers, and he was eliminated.
But the elimination doesn't appear to have shortened the horror of the multi-nation war. If anything, Israel's attacks on Gaza have increased. At least 20 civilians killed in refugee facilities. And to the north, Beirut is again being targeted. But it's not one-way traffic. Hezbollah rockets and drones continue across the border, one aimed at the home of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with no one injured, leaving a defiant leader.
We're going to win this war. So will something deter you? No.
In London, Joel Dry, 7 News.
A new campaign has been launched today to encourage young Australians to take up volunteering. Hanging Out to Help will raise awareness about the benefits and options available to 15 to 18-year-olds.
It's about helping people, it's about improving our physical environment, and it's making our communities more cohesive and more special.
More than 80% of Australia's volunteer-led organisations say they need more helpers. Time to check the weather now with Angie Asimus.
Angie, those winds picked up this afternoon.
They sure did, Mark and Angela. It was a beautiful start to the day before that change. The harbour glowing first thing this morning under a golden sunrise. Despite fairly thick cloud cover at times, we still enjoyed lots of lovely sunny breaks. Wasn't until about after 2 p.m. that the CBD reached a top of 23 degrees, warmer in our west, 26. Later this afternoon, those winds intensified near gale force at the airport with 52 kilometres per hour, 54 k's on the harbour and 65 at Watamola, which is gale force. Those wild conditions will be mostly felt on the coast. Wind warnings cover most coastal spots, as do surf warnings. Swell around 3 or 4 metres tomorrow. Details on when those conditions will ease coming up soon.
OK, thank you, Angie. Who needs spin doctors when you can use celebrities? Coming up, star power on the campaign trail in the race to the White House.
The Sydney engineers looking to the moon to help modernise our power grid.
Treasurer Jim Chalmers makes a promise to Australians doing it tough in the cost of living crisis.
Later, a holiday hideaway in our own backyard that could be set to change forever.
And a motorway turned racetrack, hoons wreak havoc in Western Sydney. Welcome back to 7 News. Better days are ahead. That's the Treasurer's promise to families across Sydney tonight struggling with the cost of living. In an exclusive interview on Spotlight, Jim Chalmers claims he's winning the inflation fight and opens up personally, revealing more about his battle with alcohol.
The cost of living crisis has battered family budgets. Groceries, petrol, electricity, all through the roof. But now Treasurer Jim Chalmers delivers the message all Australians are waiting to hear.
The worst is behind us.
Telling 7 Spotlight tonight that inflation is now coming under control and Australian families can expect the financial pressure to finally ease.
We're still very focused on the fight against inflation, but we've made really quite substantial progress. Better days are ahead.
Underlying inflation has fallen from a peak of 7.2% almost 2 years ago to 3.4% last month. Treasury predicts it will fall below 3% in December, back within the Reserve Bank's target range.
There is light at the end of the tunnel, but there's more work to do.
This is a significant change of language as Jim Chalmers and the government now shift firmly into pre-election mode, switching to a more positive, optimistic message. Jim Chalmers also revealing for the first time how close Australia came this year to falling into recession.
If I'm honest with you, Mark, there were times where we feared that the economy would go backwards.
Government spending kept it from doing that, and only just.
If you're asking me was I worried at the time, too right I was.
The Treasurer this month also marking 4 years sober, giving up alcohol after a health scare.
I was a pretty enthusiastic drinker.
Not anymore. Mark Riley, 7 News.
And you can catch Mark Riley's full interview with Jim Chalmers on 7 News Spotlight at 8:50 tonight. Sydney's West Connects has become a racetrack for some high-speed hoons. Drivers have been posting and boasting their antics, uploading videos of themselves pushing their cars to the limit in the middle of the night. Motorists doing more than 45 kilometres an hour over the limit in the tunnels have been hit with $1.3 million in fines in the last financial year. That makes up 18% of all speed camera penalties statewide.
Donald Trump has made a vulgar dig at his presidential rival at a campaign event where he bizarrely spoke in detail about a late golfing legend's private parts.
At her own rallies in battleground states, Kamala Harris leaned on star power, wheeling out Usher and Lizzo.
I got a feeling, can y'all hear me all right?
Pop singer Lizzo lending her voice to Kamala Harris.
And I think Mrs. Commander-in-Chief has a nice ring to it.
Helping rally support in her hometown Detroit, where early voting started in the city today.
We're going to go vote today. We're going to remind people to vote. We're going to register folks to vote.
The celeb cameos kept coming. In battleground Georgia, Usher made the Democrat the star of the show.
I love you more, but I love Kamala Harris even more.
Crisscrossing must-win states while questioning her rival's mental fitness for office.
He's becoming increasingly unstable and unhinged.
We can't stand you, you're a vice president.
While campaigning in pivotal Pennsylvania, Donald Trump ramped up the personal attacks.
This woman is crazy.
But the former president opened his rally with a detailed story about the late legendary golfer Arnold Palmer, at one point appearing to praise his genitalia.
But when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable.
He went on to talk about the border and the economy.
The word tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
11 million Americans have already made their choice, casting their ballots early. In the United States, Miley Hogan, 7 News.
Royalty before their eyes on a day they'll never forget. Just ahead, we catch up with Sydney-siders now with stories for a lifetime.
Troops on the move, why this could be one of the most worrying sights in Russia's war so far.
How a little lunar inspiration is upgrading our state's power grid.
Plus, a marathon effort for a mate and his young family.
And ahead in sport, what happens now for Tim Zhu after his title fight shock?
At dinner tables and in lounge rooms tonight, Sydney-siders will be sharing their stories of the day they met the King and Queen. Their Majesties creating memorable moments for excited royal watchers of all ages.
In full voice. First came the cheers, then the chants.
One more time, 3 cheers to the King!
Royal diehards knew if they wanted to attract the attention of the King and Queen, they had to fight for it.
God save the gracious King!
His anthem working wonders, sparking this impromptu visit from the royal couple.
Camilla! Welcome to Australia! Oh, bless you!
It was a bit of a surprise. We didn't know we'd get that up close and personal.
A birthday Lisa Kenny will never forget.
I shook both their hands. They were so gracious. And I said to King Charles, welcome to Australia, welcome to Sydney. And he said, you're very kind, thank you.
What a birthday treat!
I know! The family have put the birthday on hold, so we can go and celebrate now.
From handshakes to hugs.
I'm still shaking. Camilla came first and she just leant forward and gave me the biggest hug. And she said, all the best. And she just looked straight into my eyes and it was just incredibly overwhelming.
Heartfelt gifts stealing the show.
Queen Camilla, I think you look really pretty in your hat and King Charles really formal in your suit.
I gave the Queen some flowers and she was very interested, you know, where they came from, and I grew them in my own garden.
Royalists of all ages walking away with a story to tell.
I was so excited.
Why were you so excited?
Because it was his first time.
Bursting with pride, Theo Mantle and his 2 siblings handpicked by St Thomas's Anglican Church to hand deliver special presents.
I gave them a wallabies cricket ball. No, rugby ball.
What did they look like?
They looked very old.
The true power of the King and Queen is in the faces of the crowds. It may only be a brief minute of small talk or a quick wave, but it's the personal touch that keeps the public coming back.
I tell you why I'm excited, because he's paused his cancer treatment, and I think that's a really big deal.
Catherine White among those who staked her spot before the sun came up.
I've come prepared. That king is not going to miss me.
Have you seen King Charles and Queen Camilla before?
Only on the South sales at the Opera House.
But nothing beats this. With thousands more expected to have their little piece of royal history in the days to come. Annie Puller, 7 News.
Motorcycle deaths in New South Wales are now at a 10-year high. Riders or their passengers have made up 50 of the 258 fatalities on our roads so far this year. Young men on L or P plates are overrepresented in that toll, killed at twice the rate of anyone else. Speed was the most common factor in deadly crashes, followed by fatigue, drugs and alcohol. The state government is asking drivers to be mindful of bikes, pointing out that checking twice could save a life.
The Kremlin's move to bolster its frontline in Ukraine with North Korean troops is gathering pace tonight. New video appears to show soldiers from the Hermit State training in Russia. Pyongyang has so far sent 1,500 troops. They were given Russian uniforms and fake IDs to support Moscow's war. It's feared North Korea could end up providing 12,000 soldiers.
New robots inspired by NASA moon rovers are hard at work upgrading the country's power network.
Known as gorillas, they've been tested in Western Sydney, taking on the most high-risk jobs as we transition to a renewable future.
On Line 18, it is gut-wrenching work. Crews suspended on power lines straddling the steepest of slopes into a deep valley near Dapto, all to upgrade a vast energy grid.
Some of it in really remote locations.
New advanced robot crawlers are now being rolled out. They look like a spider but are called gorillas for their ability to swing.
I was trying to figure out how to get robots to climb over these spacer obstacles on the line.
Tested at Eastern Creek in Western Sydney, they take the risk out of our energy transformation.
I like it. I like the look of it.
And they have their work cut out. There are 13,000 kilometres of transmission power lines in New South Wales alone, and more need to be built and maintained. The robots harness technology used by NASA.
By bringing that space technology to Earth, we can create a safer working environment.
Developers say they were inspired by the Perseverance rover.
Robots like this one will be critical in helping create more capacity. As the electricity grid transforms, more renewable energy will flow into the system.
Keeping tech current and powering the future. Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
Friends of tradesman James Merrick, who was killed while working on his family home, have completed an astonishing achievement in his honour, collectively running 1,600 kilometres at Narellan. The challenge was set up to support the 32-year-old's pregnant widow and their 2 children.
They said James would do it. So that's what they did. They got on and they did it for him. It means the world. Rachel can now have the funds to finish off her home.
So far, the community has raised $167,000.
Incredible work. Saying farewell to a loved one can be heartbreaking, but it doesn't have to break the bank. Still to come, the new affordable ways to find a special send-off.
Smash and grab as a gang of thieves runs riot in a jewellery store, how staff fought back.
And soon in sport, the Jillaroos jet to New Zealand as the mysterious absence of the game's best player continues.
Welcome back. Liam Payne's older sister has shared her shock and heartache after her talented best friend fell to his death from a hotel balcony in Argentina. In an Instagram post, Ruth Gibbons wrote that her famous brother was born with music in his veins, adding, "Sorry, I couldn't save you." Former One Direction bandmate Zayn Malik has postponed his US tour, saying he made the decision after suffering a heartbreaking loss.
A gang of armed robbers remains on the run following a jewellery heist that sent a Melbourne shopping centre into lockdown. The thieves smashed up the store, causing around $10,000 in damage while grabbing as much as they could. An owner of the 4th generation business chased the offenders out with a stick. Detectives say they fled in a dark Mazda SUV. All too often, it's an unexpected expense and the cost of farewelling a loved one is surging. But the days of big funerals could be numbered as families find new and affordable ways to say goodbye.
From pubs to golf courses, families are finding different ways to celebrate the lives of those they've loved and lost.
We are seeing a general trend towards sort of personalised and unique elements. For some people that's something super quiet in the backyard or an ashes scattering ceremony at the beach.
Peter Smith has ensured last drinks are on him when the time comes. The 69-year-old prepaying his own cremation to spare his family pain and rising costs. Budget provider Bear Funerals has seen a 30% spike in bookings in the past 3 months as grief-stricken families struggle with the often unexpected expense.
I know someone who paid as much as $15,000, but that's where grief kicks in and decision making is not sound.
Latest figures suggest the cost of burials have surged 22% since 2019 to $11,039. The cost of cremation up 27% to $8,045.
For some people, prepaying is right. For others, it's simple as arranging a set of wishes so that when the time comes, the family knows what to do.
Peter Smith says pre-planning his death means he can get on with his life.
How do you want to be remembered? Caring dad and grandfather, that's about as good as you can get.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
It's one of the country's biggest celebrations, all in the name of a very good cause. WA's Telethon has brought together some of Australia's favourite entertainers for 26 hours of fun to raise money for children with illnesses. So far, more than $40 million has been raised. It's a holiday haven in the Hawkesbury, but it's about to go to the highest bidder. Just ahead, it has something for everyone. So what's in store for this river gem?
And 7 bridges, 1 cause. Sydney laces up in the fight against cancer. Those stories soon on 7 News.
First, Matt's here with Sport. Matt, what happens now for Tim Zhu?
Oh, huge questions, Angie and Fergo. Couldn't believe what we were watching today. The plans to dominate the world are on the canvas tonight. Coming up, all the action and Zhu's reaction to today's title fight shock in Orlando. And Sean Abbott's big message for Test selectors as India crashed to defeat against New Zealand.
Hello Sydney, this week on Sunrise, a surprise door knock you'll never forget.
Matt and Nat from Sunrise.
Hi.
Come on out.
I recognise the faces.
Plus, a Sunrise presenter scammed. One of our own impersonated, tricking their family and friends. Also, Kate Winslet is coming to Sunrise. Plus, a $20,000 luxury holiday up for grabs. Australia, New Zealand or Fiji, the destination is your choice.
Be watching to win.
Start with Sunrise.
Tim Zhu can forget about Las Vegas blockbusters after a devastating loss in Orlando that's left his career at a crossroads. Bakram Murtazaliev defended his IBF super middleweight world title with a brutal third-round stoppage, dropping Zhu 4 times.
Tim Zhu, dazed and confused.
What's going through your mind?
What just happened? What did I get hit with? A US world title fight with Kostya on the team had long been the dream. But right from the start, mental scars from the Fundora bloodbath resurfaced.
And he thought he was cut again.
Normally methodical and precise.
These guys are trading leather. Oh! Down goes Zhu.
Zhu instead tried to trade power shots with undefeated champ Bakram Murtazaliev.
Oh, down goes Zhu. For the second time.
Floored 3 times and on wobbly legs, Zhu barely survived round 2. A deer in the headlights with a Russian beast intent on turning his lights out.
Oh, that's a big one.
After beating the count for the 4th time, younger brother Nikita saved Tim from himself, throwing in the towel.
It is over, the unthinkable.
The brutal beatdown scuppers plans for a Vegas mega fight against Jamel Charlo and raises serious questions about whether he belongs at the elite level. The one thing that can't be questioned is his heart.
Every time I step in the ring, I'm willing to die in here. Things didn't go to plan. The better man won tonight. No excuses right there.
Everybody can be jealous of his will and what kind of warrior he is.
Cold comfort for someone who's right back to square one. Nick Markham, 7 News.
The Gillaroos are on their way to Christchurch tonight without Dalian medalist Olivia Kernick as the probe into coach Brad Donald's decision to snub the star rooster drags on. Like the Kangaroos, the Gillaroos get a chance on Saturday to avenge their loss to the Kiwis in last year's Pacific Cup final.
It's been at the forefront of our mind all year, especially now that we're in camp together, so definitely looking to get one back on them.
With anticipation of a future NRL entry, Jason Demetriou's Papua New Guinea opened their Pacific Bowl campaign with a 22-10 win over Fiji in Suva. It felt like the fresh start the A-League badly needed and the Sydney derby delivered. Sydney FC beat the Wanderers 2-1, both unveiling marquee stars and showing they'll be fighting for the title. The red and black block back with full force, a sold-out CommBank Stadium rocking. Sydney derbies had become as big as anything in this city, then waned, along with interest in the league, but these are signs of new life, with two quality teams igniting it.
Big chance for Joe Lolly, needs to set himself, scores! In the corner!
1-0 Sydney, answered by Western Sydney after half-time.
And Barello surely hammers! This time, he's had two-sighters!
The winner from the Sky Blues Polish striker Patrick Klimala.
2-1 Sydney FC! In the blink of an eye!
They held on despite the late red card to Max Burgess. Sydney's star import Brazilian Douglas Costa looked very good. Spanish great one Marta showed glimpses off the Wanderers bench. The Cove could mock their RBB enemies this time.
Both teams showed promising signs of being really top teams in the league this year.
I was here for that first season, that inaugural season as a player when we won the title, and hopefully as a coach in our 20th season we can win another title.
And don't forget MacArthur FC. The Bulls started with a 6-1 thrashing of Perth Glory in Campbelltown this afternoon. Tottenham have won 3 of their last 4 in the Premier League after conceding early against West Ham. Spurs storm back to thrash their London rivals 4-1.
This is Son Heung-min back in the team today!
It was a costly trip to Bournemouth for title contenders Arsenal. William Saliba was sent off as the Gunners crashed to a shock 2-0 defeat, and Manchester United fought back from a goal down to notch a much-needed win, 2-1 over Brentford. With Cameron Green out for the summer, the door is open for Sean Abbott to finally wear the baggy green. The Blues sent Victoria into bat at the MCG today. In his first Shield match for 4 years, Mitchell Starc removed Marcus Harris for 26. The Vics had dug in before Abbott's 3-wicket burst sparked a collapse of 5 for 20.
Edging and caught! Harper's out for a duck!
Abbott, a genuine bowling, batting and fielding all-rounder, took 4 for 50. The Vics are 9 for 259 at stumps, India will arrive in Australia with this test match in Bengaluru as a constant reminder, chasing 107 for victory. There were some nervous moments for New Zealand before they cruised to an 8-wicket and drought-breaking victory with Rachin Ravindra and Will Young at the crease.
So after 26 years, New Zealand win a test match in India. And
that was set up by India's first innings collapse for 46. One of the great motor racers of all time, Marc Marquez, skidded on his own visor tear at the start line, fell out of the top 10, then charged back to beat championship leader Jorge Martin in a classic duel at Phillip Island. It's the 6-time MotoGP champion's 4th Australian Grand Prix win. Sydney 19-year-old Senna Asimus finished 3rd in Moto2.
It's not been the easiest of seasons, and to get my first podium today, I'm actually a bit emotional.
Maybe because of that, he didn't quite nail the celebration lap, but it took it like the future champ he's touted to be. He did give a wave to the crowd after that. Late in the Formula One sprint in Austin.
He must have touched, surely. That was almost the end of the race for both Leclerc and for Norris.
Lando Norris went on to finish 3rd behind championship leader Max Verstappen, who won for the first time since June. Qualifying ended early when George Russell went into the wall, handing Norris pole position from Mad Max. Oscar Piastri qualified 5th. Starting the campaign now, Sean Abbott for the first Test 11. It's about time. He's a champion player. There's a spot for him there in the Aussie team.
Can bowl, can bat and can field.
Absolutely.
Love to see it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
It's a plot of land in the heart of the Hawkesbury that real estate agents say is unlike anything else on the Aussie property market.
The Del Rio Resort is up for sale for the first time in 60 years, and high-end buyers are circling with grand plans in mind.
It's a holiday hideaway, riverside relaxing. This is the Del Rio Resort at Wiseman's Ferry.
We call it the island, meaning that once you're here, you don't need to get off.
Only accessible by public boat. The site boasts a water park, golf course, caravan spaces and other cabins. Loved by 90,000 people a year, and love really does blossom there.
We've had about 5 weddings here where they met here as children in our park.
The McNamaras have operated it for 45 years, bought as a small plot of land by Bill in 1964.
He always dreamed of other people enjoying what he loved so much.
But now, the end of an era. Del Rio is up for sale.
It's hard to price something so special and so unique, but we're anticipating interest in sort of the mid-30 million mark.
Interested buyers include tourist park operators, high net wealth individuals and developers. It could transform into an entertainment precinct for festivals, a bigger sports park, waterfront restaurant or luxury accommodation.
There's existing DAs and BAs in place that can double the existing accommodation, the hospitality facilities.
Over time, the site has expanded to what it is now, 3 kilometres of land along the Hawkesbury River. That amount of land and this position makes it unlike anything else on the market in Australia.
A pocket of paradise with big potential. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
It was wonderful for Angie and I to be part of the Seven Bridges Walk this morning, where close to 12,000 people trek for up to 28 kilometres to raise money in the fight against cancer.
It's a glorious day. Pat yourselves on the back. You probably had the alarm go off before the sun was up.
A lot of the people here today will have been touched by cancer already in their lives. So there's so much that connects the community on this subject, and they know that by raising funds they can really make a difference.
You can still donate to a very worthy cause. Just visit the Cancer Council website. Yeah, please give if you can. Now, Angie is back with the forecast.
And Angie, we've got some wild conditions.
That's right, Angela and Mark. There are warnings for hazardous surf and strong winds tomorrow. I'll have your full back to work Monday forecast next.
Tonight's 7 News headlines. King Charles and Queen Camilla have delighted royal fans in Sydney, stopping to shake hands and share stories for the start of their tour.
Shattered loved ones have paid tribute to a mother and 2 children who drowned in Lansvale.
Police are treating a fire at a Jewish cafe in Bondi Beach as suspicious, seizing a jerry can from inside the venue.
And the source of a bomb scare at Sydney Airport remains a mystery.
Now, here's Angie with Sydney's weather. Angie.
Thank you, Ange. We enjoyed some decent sunny breaks today. Temperatures were close to average, so the only factor to disrupt that superb Sunday was some wild winds this afternoon. Before that gusty change, we reached a pleasant top of 23 degrees in the CBD. That happened in the early afternoon. The change surged up from the south, though. Winds were gale force in parts. Ahead of that, temperatures quite comfortable, 23 degrees on the beach at Manly, 25 at Camden, 26 was about the warmest of it, and that was at Penrith. We have high pressure over the nation's south and low pressure sitting off to the east. So the squeeze between the two is just funneling those southerlies right up the coastline. Tomorrow we'll see more windy conditions in marine areas and some big surf, so warnings are in place. Meanwhile, inland New South Wales should avoid all of that, remaining settled. Around the capitals, Brisbane's looking fine, aiming for 28 degrees, looking very warm through the southeast. Canberra 24 degrees, Melbourne 25, Hobart expecting 22 and Adelaide to climb to 30. Back home, a shower or two forecast around Newcastle, gusty on the north coast around Byron Bay and further south at Wollongong. Settled elsewhere, quite warm inland, 32 degrees on the way for Bourke. Cooler in the east with those southerlies, 22 degrees forecast for Port Macquarie. The metro region tomorrow, partly cloudy for the most part. Our beaches may record a light passing shower and again becoming windy on the coastal fringe during the early afternoon. So tops should make it into the low 20s, a cooler cool and 19 though for Cronulla, Bondi, Terry Hills and Mona Vale, where those winds will be gusty. So on the water, strong southerlies to around 30 knots tomorrow. Warnings cover those. Warnings too for that 3 metres swell. The warnings do span the length of the coastline. Strong gusts forecast. To the CBD tomorrow, partly cloudy. If we see a passing shower, it is going to be nice and light, a top of 21. And once again, it is looking like a gusty afternoon, which will bring the wind chill back into the picture. To the next 7 days, if you'd like to see the King and Queen in person, your best bet is the Opera House on Tuesday afternoon. The good news is the weather is looking mostly sunny and warm for that, 23 degrees in the CBD. Even warmer Wednesday. In fact, the showers should hold off until about Thursday, when we'll only see a few millimetres in the gauge. So not a bad week on the way, Angela and Mark.
Putting our best foot forward.
We certainly are.
Thanks, Angie. That is 7 News for this Sunday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening.
Our royal coverage continues on Sunrise tomorrow from 5 a.m. From all of the 7 News team, thanks so much for your company. Have a great night.
Good night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want every minute of every day, including breaking news alerts. Download the 7 News app now.